We spoke a couple of days ago about my thoughts on the problems with a potential Derby County takeover. In this video, we're going to be looking across the potential positives that come with Derby County being taken over. Obviously, David Clowes has left the door open for investors or someone to take over the club up to 80%, giving him a 20% stake. David Clowes obviously wants to stay on as chairman, which is a really, really good thing for the club. But there's a few challenges and positives which come with this. We followed the challenges in a previous video. Make sure you go and check that one out and then come back and finish this one. But for me, the main positive with a takeover coming in is that Derby County will see an investment in cash. Their cash flow will improve, and that will obviously then give Derby County the opportunity to go and search far and wide across the likes of Europe and Asia and things like that to bring in the best possible players on bigger budgets. You look at, if we'd have had 10 million to spend this summer and we'd have brought in players like Kenzo and Jakub Zetterstrom and things like that and had more money to spend in those territories, could we have found better players and even more players to add to the Derby County squad? I certainly think that would have been a possibility. Now, for me, I certainly think Derby County will need an influx of cash if they are going to be aiming for the Premier League anytime soon. And it's no slight to David Clowes. I think he's done an excellent job so far managing the club and the money that is available to us to make sure that we can put together a competitive squad in the Championship. And I certainly think we've done that so far. I think we're probably about 38 points away from safety. At this early point of the season, I think that is really, really good. I think we've started really well. But I do think that if we'd have had a bit more money, James Collins would not still be here. Connor Washington would not still be here. And Dejon Brown would have headed out on loan because we would have got a better striker. So with the influx of cash comes the opportunity to better the squad, the opportunity to better the training ground, better the coaching staff. Now, obviously, as I mentioned in my previous video, changing the coaching staff isn't something which I personally think would be the right decision to do right now, but I certainly think that in the long run, it would obviously be a question which would have to be asked. Now, for Derby County to be taken over, obviously David Clowes has got to agree to certain terms, and obviously the potential ownership group also has to agree to certain terms because David Clowes wants to stay on as chairman. Now, if David Clowes is in a position where he has some say on his position as chairman, where he has a vote to put at the table, I think that's a really good thing for Derby County because he can then make sure that Derby County keep up the environment and the persona that he has built up with the club over the course of the last few years. And I think the last thing that Derby County want is to go back to that club that are spending 15-20 million pounds on deadline day for players who, well, they were worth it at the time, but over the course of their Derby County careers, were they worth it? In my opinion, absolutely not. So it's one of those for me where I think under David Clowes, as our chairman, I think we'll be able to keep up the pillars that he's created for the club to make us a family club, inclusive for all, and make sure that we're not overspending, we're being self-sufficient. We have an incredible academy that we do need to utilise, and that's something which I want to cover in another video as well, talking about Paul Ward and his realistically lack of usage of the academy, and that's something which I am going to talk about because I think you've got players coming through. Obviously, I'm not saying that they're all ready to jump into the first team right now, but I think there's been opportunities for younger players to come in and have opportunities, and Paul Ward just hasn't given it them. Now, there's obviously an opportunity for new potential owners to come in and make that sort of a staple of themselves, sort of going, well, we want Derby County to look like this. We want the likes of Dejon Brown to be getting minutes, the likes of Freddie Turley, who was on the bench, to be getting minutes. And overall, I think that would be a positive to the club because it's going to help us become much more self-sufficient and create much better opportunities for us to make money. You look at what Peterborough have done, bringing in low-risk transfers and making them better and then moving them on to pastures new for incredible fees, with then incredible sell-on fees to make themselves more money. And Derby County, although they've benefited off salon fees recently, they've never really maximised profits out of young players. I think you look at the likes of Max Bird, you look at Jason Knight, you look at Louis Sibley, you obviously go back to Festi Abaseli, Luke Plange, you look at Dylan Williams. I could go on and on with players that we've not maximised our profits on, and I think that's something which Derby County certainly need to do in the future to become self-sufficient, and that should be a talking point for any group who wants to take over, is what's the point of having this academy if we never get rewards from it? I think if we talk about the money we've made from our academy, it's probably about 30 odd million since Mel Morris pumped all that money in, and you have to credit him with that. That is something that he did really, really well, but ultimately his spending for the first team then impacted the development of those players getting into the first team and made it really hard for them, which obviously you don't want it to be easy to get into the first team, but if you've got players who you know will be able to make a difference, you need to give them the opportunities to get into that first team. And when you've got 6 senior players on 20-30 grand a week in midfield, it makes it really hard to put in a Max Bird, a Louis Sibley, a Jason Knight, or things like that. And that is one of the problems which we faced under previous management and previous ownership. So if David Clowes can make it a thing for the new owners to make sure they utilise the academy, I think that will be absolutely massive for the club. You obviously, when we talk about positives, you've got to look at where Derby County are right now. We are, realistically, if we turn around and win 60% of our remaining fixtures, we could be in the Premier League, which is £100 million promotion just for being promoted. And then you've got the TV money, and if you stay there, you've got more TV money and your prize money and things like that. And Derby County aren't that far away. Yes, we obviously need to improve the squad a heck of an amount. Like, the squad that we have right now is not a championship quality squad, not a Premier League quality squad, sorry, but it could be in the future. We've got some really good players coming through, some really good young players as well. You look at Zetterstrom, you look at the likes of Kane Wilson, you look at Kenzo Heldmine, you look at obviously David Ozo's on loan, but a really, really good player. And obviously there's going to be players along the way who come and go before we hit the Premier League again, or before we even get into those conversations about being a playoff contender, let alone a promotion contender. But how long is that going to take? Obviously, the big positive about all this takeover talk is that David Clowes has funded the club for the next 2 years as per BBC Radio Derby. Now, this means that we can take our time. We don't need the takeover done next week. We're not running on a deadline. But that is also a negative. Because David Clowes has that time and that money already in, is he going to want to give up the club beforehand? Probably not. And what you've got to think is, if David Clowes does get us up to the Premier League as the owner, the sole owner as he is right now, well, Clowes Development's the owner, but he's running the show, then I think that brings back his money straight away. And it's an incredible situation for Derby County. It's an incredible situation for David Clowes that we can be in this talk about takeovers and investment, and I do think that some really good groups will come forward and pick up the club. I think we obviously know there's been a lot of talk about Americans over recent weeks on Twitter and things like that, but do we want Americans? We've seen what's happened in the past. You look at Birmingham and Wrexham now, and their talk of playing League One games over in America. And do I think that's the right thing for any English club? Personally, no. I can understand playing European competitions in different countries, obviously, but playing league matches, English Football League matches, for me is just the wrong thing to do. Now, you can obviously have your say down in the comments. I'll try and respond to every single one of you, but before we do get off from this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County and EFL content that will be heading your way across the course of this season. Make sure you check out my other YouTube channels, Lewis Talk EFL, it's going to be where my League One and Championship previews and reviews are going to be from now on, and Lewis Talk Racing, that's where we're going to be talking everything Formula 1. And make sure you also check out Lewis Everett Plays, that's where we're going to be bringing some gaming content over the course of the rest of time, hopefully, if we can make it a monetizable channel. That'll be incredible. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one.